So good afternoon, everyone. In yesterday's class, we had started talking about Delhi Sultanate, and we had discussed some of the details of slave dynasty, which are important for our understanding. Okay, so while discussing that, we talked about important sultans and Razia Sultana. We discussed what were their achievements and what kind of changes are they introducing in Indian subcontinent. So that was something that we had covered in yesterday's class. Is there any doubt from that class? नहीं, उनके पेरेंट्स स्लेव नहीं थे. जैसे क्या होता है कि जो स्लेव है उसका जो बच्चा होगा उसको तो स्लेव कंसिडर करेंगे, लेकिन मान लें कि कोई ऐसे पेरेंट्स है, कोई एक ऐसा कपल है जो कि फ्री है, उसका जो बच्चा हुआ उसको कैप्चर कर लिया या कि उसको किसी ने बेच दिया और वो स्लेव बन गया, तो पेरेंट्स तो फ्री ही रहे. द चाइल्ड बिकेम द स्लेव. So that kind of slaves have been given a specific term whom we call Mamluk. Okay. Is there any other doubt from that class? So remember the important achievements, remember the important changes and the terminologies that we had discussed in slave dynasty. Okay. Now what is going to be our plan today? We are going to talk about Khilji dynasty, Tughlaq dynasty and some important details which are important for prelims examination pertaining to Sayyid and Lodhis. So there you don't need to mug up each and every detail. You need to know about some of the important facts. Okay, so we are going to cover that first, and if we have time, then we'll move forward to the next topic. Okay, now when we are talking about these dynasties, what is important here from prelims perspective? Again, the very same pattern is going to be repeated here as well. So I have already told you that what was the relation of Delhi Sultanate vis-a-vis Mongols. That is one part that we need to put attention to. So this is something which we have already covered conceptually in the last class. Here we will revise it in the context of Khiljis and Tughlaqs. That will be one part where you have to put your focus upon. Second, important terminologies, important changes and some of the achievements of important sultans. Is that clear? Apart from that, what you should also keep in mind, because in your NCERT also and in some of the other advanced books as well, there has been a comparison which has been drawn between the character of Alauddin Khilji and Muhammad bin Tughlaq. So you should study it in that way too. Okay, that what are the differences? Are their ideas similar? If they are trying to implement similar kind of ideas, why one of them is getting very successful and the other one is failing at a large scale? So that is also one point that we are going to elaborate upon. Okay, so now let us start our lecture with a discussion on Khilji dynasty. So basic chronology, you know, 1292, 1320. Again, that is not something that UPSC asks. Why am I telling you this? So that you keep in mind that we are talking about 13th, 14th century. That is what we need to keep in mind. Now, when we are talking about Khilji dynasty, who is going to be the first sultan? So here Jalaluddin Khilji was the first sultan. Again, you will see that this is going to be a pattern in all these dynasties, that the first sultan will either rule for 4 years or 6 years. Their rule is not going to be long lasting for one reason or the other, and the same remains true for Jalaluddin Khilji as well. So he is establishing Khilji dynasty. Again, he is going to go through the very similar process. So Rajasthan, here Malwa was important. We know that Doab was important, Suba of Bengal and Gujarat. That is going to be important. So the same process will be repeated. Sultan sitting in Delhi, going to Rajasthan, going to Doab, going to Bengal Suba, going to Malwa, and the Sultan will try to establish their control in all these areas. With Khilji, what is changing? Inclusion of Gujarat. That is one addition that we need to keep in mind. Within a few years, what will happen? Alauddin Khilji is going to kill Jalaluddin Khilji. Okay, so Alauddin Khilji had gone to a particular battle with the Sultan, the ruler of Devgiri. And when he is returning with huge wealth, and there was some disagreement over which he is going to kill Jalaluddin Khilji. So that is the basic storyline for our understanding. Here, from examination perspective, what we need to remember is what is happening in Deccan. Just the name you should keep in mind. Here, when we are talking about Devgiri, it is being ruled by Yadavas. Okay. Why this detail is important to keep in mind? Because UPSC keeps giving these names in prelims examination. Yadav, Kakatiya, Hoysala, Pandya. These are the names that is going to be repeated in previous year questions, and it might come again as well when we know that there has been a repetition. Okay, so we should know about the prominent dynasties which were present in 13th, 14th century. Now, by logic, what I want you to understand, think about the development of a particular dynasty. When we talk about establishment, they start from a particular place, they reach a peak, and then there is a process of gradual decline. So we can understand it the way wave is representation. Represented. One dynasty will come, then fall, then another will rise. This is how it develops. Now, whenever we have talked about any important dynasty or any important empire, what has been the timeline? For how many centuries have they been able to rule properly? What has been the average year for rule? Mauryas 322 to 185. How many years? Tentatively. So either 2 centuries, maximum to 3 centuries. That is what we can understand. So when we are talking about very powerful dynasties or very powerful empires, generally they are lasting for 2, maximum to 3 centuries. So let us keep a figure in mind of 300 years. By that logic, if we are seeing Yadavas, Kakatiyas, Hoysalas, Pandyas being present in 13th or 14th centuries, so by logic, even if we don't know the year of start, by logic, they might have started their rule in 10th or 11th century. UPSC had given a question, which of these dynasties were present in 8th century CE? Now, even if we have not read the details of these dynasties, which we don't have to, we need to keep certain facts in mind about these dynasties. By logic, we would have been able to answer this question, none of the above. Are you getting it? So this is how we have to learn to apply our knowledge when these kind of factual questions are being asked. Is this clear? And you will find a few questions on regional dynasties when it comes to questions from medieval India. So what you can do when we are reading these topics, we are going to talk about the important areas that these sultans are going to conquer. So we will come across these names. These names have been given in your NCERT as well, that when expansion process is taking place, which are the dynasties that Alauddin Khilji is attacking or Muhammad bin Tughlaq is attacking. So if we keep just that in mind, we'll be able to reach a conclusion when these dynasties might have come to existence, even when we don't know the exact date. Are you getting it? So keep these kind of things in mind and keep remembering these names कि किसके साथ में इनका association आता है. Is this clear? So let us keep this background in mind and move forward. So now we have understood that Alauddin Khilji has killed the reigning Sultan Jalaluddin Khilji, and he is going to declare himself the next Sultan. What is he calling himself? He is calling himself Sikandar-e-Sani. What do we mean by Sikandar-e-Sani? हम कहते हैं ना इसका कोई सानी नहीं है, माने इसका जैसा कोई दूसरा है नहीं. ओके, सानी माने जिससे कंपैरिजन आप करते हैं कि इसके जैसा है. सो ही इज सेइंग दैट आई एम सिकंदर-ए-सानी, दैट मीन्स आई एम लाइक Alexander the second Alexander. So he is taking this title for himself. So that is one term that is associated with the character of Alauddin Khilji that we can keep in mind from prelims perspective. So he is calling himself Sikandar-e-Sani. That means he has the ambition of making a large empire. That is another thing that we can understand. Alexander is somebody who is going to far off areas, conquering those lands. So if he is having the aspiration of becoming Sikandar-e-Sani, that means he is also somebody who is going to be an expansionist. Is this clear? So this is another thing that we can keep in mind. So what he is going to do, he is going to do large scale expansion, one thing. Second, he is going to keep strict control over his nobility. That is another thing. So what is it that he is going to do in the empire? Expansion. What is it that he will do sitting in Delhi? Control over the nobility. Okay, so these are two aspects that we need to understand. So when we are talking about his policies towards his nobles, what he did, see, he is killing the reigning monarch. When he killed the reigning sultan, there are going to be people who will rebel against him. That how can you do this? He killed them all. Then he bribed some of them to be in his favor. The ones who accepted the bribe, he killed them as well. That if you can take bribe from me, you can take bribe from somebody else and you will be against me as well. So he killed them as well. What do we understand by looking at these acts is that he is somebody who is very ruthless. Okay, that is one conclusion that we can reach to. When he is going to recruit his nobility, what he did, he is going to keep a strict watch over their lives. So he is going to say that you cannot organize any jalsa. Jalsa means party without my permission. Even if you are organizing a particular jalsa, you need to get my approval on the list of the people that you are going to invite. Why? Because when we want to make good relations with somebody, when we want to make our position more prominent, we go for diplomacy. So we'll either marry into that family, or we are going to go to their parties, or we are going to invite them to our parties. So this is how he is going to put a control over the growing power of the nobility by controlling with whom they are meeting in unofficial parties or jalsa. By going to control their marriage alliances, he is going to tell them that you cannot get married to somebody without my approval. Okay, so these are the kind of measures that he is going to take. He will say that you cannot eat liquor sitting in the court, क्योंकि आप उससे क्या होंगे कि ज़्यादा open होके बात करने लग जाएंगे. People lose their apprehensions mostly when they are drunk. So these are the kind of measures that he is going to take to keep a strict watch over whatever the nobility was doing. Apart from that, he is also going to recruit a lot of spies. Why? Because he has the ambition of having a strong empire. So he is going to recruit spies to check on people whether somebody is conspiring against the sultan or not. So a very strong spy system that is also going to be part of Alauddin Khilji's rule. Is this clear? Now let us come to the expansion process. What he is going to do? He is going to go to Rajasthan. Three very important areas that you keep coming across while reading about these expansions. One is Ranthambore, the second is Chittor, the third is Jalore. Okay, so he is also going to go over these areas and he is also going to win all these areas. Now, if you go to Rajasthan, have any of you been to Rajasthan? If you go to their forts, you will find that those forts are impregnable. You won't be able to break it. You won't be able to go inside it very easily, at least. Okay. Now, when we are looking at these sultans, how are they going to win the battles? इनका typical idea क्या होगा? We can't come inside, but you will have to come out to get the food supplies. So we are going to sit there for 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, 12 months, whatever time it takes. So you will have to come out eventually. तो घेरा डाल के यहाँ पे बैठ जाते थे. ठीक है? This is one thing that will become very important when we will study Hampi. I'll refer to this idea there. Okay, so what is happening? If this is the fort, they are going to sit here. So people will have to come out of their fort one day or the other. Second, what they'll do? They will form an alliance with some of the important officials. They'll poison the water supply, or they are going to pollute the food supplies. For example, if these people are vegetarian, तो meat रख दिया अंदर. So food even if they have enough food supplies, it is going to be polluted. I'm telling you the measures that rulers used to take to defeat the other one if the fort is impregnable. Is this clear? So these are all the ways which rulers have applied at one place or the other. So he is going to win over these areas. Again, he is going to go to Doab, he is going to go to Bengal, he is going to go to Malwa, he is going to go to Gujarat as well. So these are going to be the areas of direct control. When he had raided the region of Gujarat, he found a particular slave called Kafur. So Malik Kafur is going to become very important in taking care of the important administrative affairs of the empire. At the same time, he is going to be the one who will help the Sultan in crushing a lot of rebellions. He will be the one who will go to Deccan, who will go to South, and who is going to raid those areas, get tribute for the Sultan. So here one thing which becomes very important is that Alauddin Khilji had somebody whom he could trust. This is something which is going to be missing when we'll talk about Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Is this clear? So a very important aid to Alauddin Khilji. That is one thing that we can remember. Now, what else is part of the expansionist policy? That these people are going to make this the boundary of the empire. So prominently the northern area, eastern part of the empire, that is going to be directly controlled. When we talk about their policy towards Deccan or towards South, what is going to happen there? In these areas, they are going to raid these areas constantly. So let's say every year or every second year, they are going to go to these areas. They are going to raid the areas of Yadavas, Pandyas, Hoysalas, Kakatiyas, and they are going to get huge tributes from them. They are going to loot their temples. They are going to loot their palaces. Why? To gain a lot of wealth. So when we are talking about their policies towards Deccan or South, what is happening? These areas are going to be economically very much beneficial for Delhi Sultanate at this point of time. And they will not have to incur the cost of administrative machinery because they are not going to rule those areas directly. So hardly any investment and a huge profit from this land. That is one thing that we need to remember. Is this clear? Now, let us come to the Mongol part that we have already discussed, but we can revise it briefly. When we are talking about Khiljis, what is going to be their attitude? So we discussed yesterday that Alauddin Khilji will be able to defeat the Mongols successfully. There was one instance when he was busy in Rajasthan that Mongols came till Delhi and they took control of Siri. So when we talk about the history of Delhi, there have been a lot of cities. जैसे कहते हैं ना कि दिल्ली 7 बार बसी है 7 बार उजड़ी है. So there are various cities within Delhi. So Delhi was not the way it looks like today. These people are going to take control of some area. They are going to build their forts there. They are going to build their marketplaces there. People who are forming nobility, they'll build their houses there, and this is how the existence of a city will come up. Okay, so in different parts you will find different cities which were known as Siri or Jahanpana or Deenpana or Shahjahanabad or Lalkot back then when we are talking about medieval period. Is this clear? So one fact that we should remember, even though Alauddin Khilji was able to defeat Mongols successfully various times, there was one instance when Mongols took control of Siri for a few months. Is this clear? So remember this detail when we are talking about the relation of Delhi Sultanate vis-a-vis Mongols. Okay. Now, let us move towards the other aspect, which is going to be the economic one. What is important about Alauddin's economic policies? Okay. So he is going to come up with a policy where he is going to regulate the markets. Why is he going to do so? See, the Mongols were a powerful power, and there was this danger of Mongols attacking the Delhi Sultanate centers. So what would be the idea to defend your Sultanate? What will you do to defend your Sultanate? You'll fight. To fight a huge army which is also capable is required. Okay. So a huge army, all of them have standing armies. A huge army which is also capable. These two things are important. The army has to be huge. The army has to be capable. Okay. So to make your army capable, what you will do? You will ensure that you are recruiting good people who are good fighters. You will ensure that the horses that they are going to use, those horses are of good quality. So what used to happen, that if let's say the Sultan is going through the recruitment process, the person will come, the person will show the abilities, will get recruited, will bring a very good quality horse for inspection. When the person is recruited, they'll go home, they'll sell the horse and they'll buy a cheaper quality horse. Okay, so that is one thing. If when the war is happening and they have to go for the war, they'll send somebody else in their place. So Alauddin came up with two policies in military. One is Dag and the second is Chehra. What is it? Okay, the second. So keeping a roster of their physical attributes, that will be Chehra. So what he is doing, he is going to brand the horse. The one who will come for inspection, he is going to put a royal branding on them. Now, who would try to buy a horse which has a royal branding? No one. Because if you don't own the horse, why are you going to get that? If there is a royal branding on it, you might be punished. So even if the person wanted to sell it, people will not buy it. So this is going to be one way in which Alauddin will ensure the good quality horses coming to the army. Second, the policy of Chehra. So when we are talking about Chehra, what becomes important here? Keeping a roster of the physical attributes of the soldiers. Okay. So whatever are the physical attributes, that will be noted down. So when the person is coming to fight, that can be matched with the roster. Okay. So that is how he is going to ensure that the army is capable. So he introduced the policy of Dag and Chehra. In the later times, be it Sher Shah Suri or be it Akbar, they are also going to use this very policy of Dag and Chehra. It was introduced by Alauddin Khilji for the first time. Is this clear? Now this is how you can make your army capable. If you are going to recruit a huge army, how are you going to pay for them? टैक्स कलेक्ट करेंगे तो किसान दुखी हो जाएंगे, वो विद्रोह कर देंगे. अरे तो कैश आना चाहिए ना, कहां से आएगा कैश? सब कुछ तो जैसे चल रहा है वैसे ही चलेगा ना. अचानक से ना प्रोडक्शन बढ़ जाएगा ना ट्रेड बढ़ जाएगा. Regulation and control are two different terms. Okay. So here, let us understand what he did. He came up with a very innovative policy. See, either you can put a lot of pressure on peasants, ज्यादा से ज्यादा क्या करेंगे, पूरा प्रोड्यूस खरीद ले, पूरा प्रोड्यूस छीन लेंगे उनसे, that can be one thing. या आप अपने सोल्जर्स को कम पैसा देंगे. If you are paying your soldiers less, they are also not going to be happy about it. So what you are going to do as Sultan, what Alauddin Khilji did, he said that I am going to lower the prices of the things that you need on daily basis. So this is the policy of market regulation. He is going to regulate the markets in and around the areas of Delhi, because this is where the army is going to reside. Okay, so what he did, he raised the taxes in Doab. One thing that he did was raising the taxes in Doab. Now, if you are raising the taxes in Doab, it will put additional pressure on the peasants. What he did very innovatively here, see, when we are talking about tax collection, the Sultan is going to recruit somebody here at the provincial level. They are going to contact somebody, Jamindar, at the local level. They are going to contact the Khuds and Muqaddams. Now understand it in a practical way. When we are talking about taxes being imposed by Sultan, the Sultan will, let's say, ask for X amount. This person is not going to be a very goody-goody person. People were corrupt as well. They'll increase some amount ki bhai X plus Y chahiye. Okay. The same is going to be repeated here, plus let's say A. So the actual amount that was being exacted had to be X, but there will be some additional levy as well, which peasant had to pay. In Doab region, what Alauddin Khilji did, he declared the land as Khalisa land. What is the meaning of Khalisa land? Land belonging to the state. So he declared the land Khalisa land, and he is going to get rid of these intermediaries. Now, even if you are raising the taxes, peasant will not be that much burdened. Are you getting it? So this is a very innovative, a very practical measure that he came up with, and then he increased the taxes in Doab. Is this clear? So remember this. Now what he is going to do, he'll set up 3 markets. One will be of luxurious goods, one will be of things which we require in life but not every day. For example, clothes or horses or slaves, these kind of things. One will be a market which is going to be of grains, things that we require on daily basis. And then he is going to regulate these markets. He is the Sultan. He knows how much he is paying to the soldiers. He can make an expense list and he can come to a conclusion कि भाई अगर मैं दाम इतना रखूं और मैं पेमेंट इतना कर रहा हूं तो they'll be able to survive easily. And this is what he is going to do here. Okay. So to get the grains to this market, what he had done, he converted the Doab land to Khalisa land. He removed the intermediaries. He raised the taxes, the kharaj tax in Doab. Now how peasants are going to give this tax? He recruited Banjaras. Who are Banjaras? There are people who are always on move, and they were one of them. They were also functioning as traders. Okay. So what he did, he recruited them and kept a record of their family as well. कि भाई भाग ना जाए. So he recruited them. He kept a record of their families, and then he asked them to go to the agricultural land and they'll buy the crops from peasant, and that will be sent to the royal treasury. Okay. So the peasants are paying Banjaras. Banjaras are getting it to the Sultan. Is this clear? So this is how he was able to ensure the regular supply of grains in large numbers to the royal treasury. And then that is going to be sent to the market that he had set up. Is this clear? Huh. They were people who were always on move. They also functioned as traders. जब हम medieval society की बात करते हैं, जब हम ancient society की भी बात करते हैं, तो there are people, there are societies who are always on move. ठीक है, तो वो मूव करते रहते हैं एक जगह से दूसरे जगह तक. अब वैसे में क्या करते हैं, मान ले कि वो यहाँ से यहाँ तक ट्रैवल करके किसी रीजन से जाते हैं या जगह जगह जा करके अपना जो उनका काम है वो करते हैं. तो यहाँ से क्या होगा ना कि कुछ सामान लेकर के यहाँ पे पहुंचा भी देंगे. सो वो भी काम करते थे. किनको? सुल्तान विल पे द बंजारस. ओके, सो बिकॉज सुल्तान हैड रिक्रूटेड देम. ओके, और इस तरह के बहुत सारे ट्राइब्स जो थे वो इंडिया में होते थे. व्हेन ब्रिटिश विल कम, दे आर गोइंग टू लेबल देम क्रिमिनल ट्राइब्स. ट्राइब्स who were criminal by birth. Why? Because they were always on move. So for British, they are the ones they will be suspicious about. British will be suspicious about these people. क्यों? क्योंकि एक जगह से दूसरी जगह जा रहे हैं. So they are going to work as spies for nationalists, and that is why they termed them as criminal tribe. कि कहीं भी मिलेंगे उनको उठा के जेल में डाल दो. हाँ, वो एक नाम है जो जुड़ गया. बंजारा माने जो एक जगह से दूसरे जगह जाते रहते हैं. नॉर्थ में कौन सा दोआब है? तो जब नॉर्थ में रूल कर रहे हैं तो कौन सा दोआब होगा ये? यहीं पे दोआब में बढ़ा रहे. ठीक है, ये वाला दोआब की हम बात कर रहे हैं ईस्टर्न साइड पे. चलें, इज दिस मच क्लियर? नाउ हियर व्हाट वी नीड टू रिमेंबर: खलीसा, खराज, बंजारा. These are going to be our important terms from prelims perspective. If we are talking about the market regulation policy of Alauddin Khilji, why is he doing it? That becomes important. What is it that he is doing here? Why, what, and how he is going to make it function properly? Those three answers we should have with us. Okay, why is he doing it? कि बड़ा आर्मी बनाना है. He wanted to create a huge army, a capable army at a lower expense. Is this clear? How is he doing it? Declaring the Doab land into Khalisa land, raising the taxes in Doab, removing the intermediaries, recruiting Banjaras to collect the crops from the agriculturalists and sending it to royal treasury. Is this clear? Then what he'll do? He'll send that grain to the market. Okay. And when we are talking about the proper functioning, what he had done, he had recruited a particular official called Sehna-e Mandi, because he is the one who is making sure that crops are reaching the market, whether the people are selling it at the decided rate or not. How this is going to be ensured? So by recruiting a particular official who is going to take care of all these things. Have you seen the movie Nayak? नायक में एक सीन होता है ना जहाँ पे वो खुद भी जाता है वेश बदल के देखने के लिए कि मार्केट में क्या चीजें कैसे चल रही हैं. दिस इज समथिंग दैट ही यूज्ड टू डू as well. So there are records which tell us that Alauddin Khilji also used to go to the markets. वो वेश बदलता था, जाता था, and he used to check on the prices कि जितना प्राइस डिसाइड किया है उतने पे बेच रहे हैं या नहीं. So this is going to be a very efficient policy that he had come up with. Okay, and that became very successful as well. So he is somebody who is thinking of innovative ideas. He is somebody who was also able to successfully implement it. These are two things. One can come up with an innovative idea, but it does not mean that the idea is going to be implemented successfully. In the case of Alauddin Khilji, it is going to be implemented successfully as well. Is this clear? So this is another arena that you should know. This is the information that you should have about Alauddin Khilji. We have discussed the administrative details, we have discussed the political details, we have discussed the attitude towards Mongols, we have discussed the economic policies, military policies as well. So remember this, keep revising it and try to solve your questions on this basis. Okay. Now after him, again Malik Kafur will try to take control, and the next Sultan is going to be killed, Malik Kafur will also be killed, and Tughlaqs are going to come to place. Within a matter of 4 years, Khilji dynasty is going to end. Okay, is this clear? So remember this. If we have to talk about the cultural contributions, has Alauddin Khilji made some cultural contribution? Yes. Yesterday only we were talking about Alai Darwaza. So he built Alai Darwaza. He is going to add stories to Qutub Minar. He also started building of Alai Minar, which was supposed to be much huge in comparison to Qutub Minar. If you go to Qutub complex, you'll find a one base ऐसे करके, और कुतुब मीनार से कहीं बड़ा वो आपको, अगर आप उसको इमेजिन करने की कोशिश करें, इफ यू लुक एट जस्ट वन स्टोरी, इट इज मच बिगर इन कंपैरिजन टू दी कुतुब मीनार. सो देयर वर टू स्टोरीज व्हिच वर बिल्ट. वन ऑफ देम डज नॉट सर्वाइव नाउ, लाइटनिंग की वजह से वो टूट गया. ठीक है, अ सिंगल स्टोरी सर्वाइव्स now. He was not able to complete it because he had to deal with the Mongols, and he started deflecting the money there to build a huge army which was also capable. Okay, nonetheless, he has contributed in culture as well. How? By building Alai Minar, by building the Alai Darwaza. He also built the city of Siri. If you go to IIT Delhi, so there you will also find a Chor Minar. That is also from this period. Again a minar, which is called Chor Minar. क्यों? क्योंकि बंदियों को वहाँ पे लेके जाते थे, जो लोग अपराधी होते थे, people who were criminal, they used to be locked up there. Is this clear? So these are the things that we can remember. Now, if we talk about the cultural contribution in context of literature, there is a person called Amir Khusro, who was in his court, and he has written Khazain Futuh and Noor-e Sipah. Okay, so these two texts you can remember. Apart from that, when we are talking about this particular person, Amir Khusro, he also records instances of Jauhar in his work. What is Jauhar? So it is a collective act on part of women where they used to self-immolate themselves to protect their honor if there was an invader who had captured their area. Okay, so this is also a practice that we are going to witness in medieval period. Okay, that is another thing that you can remember. When we talk about Amir Khusro, he is the one who is credited with the origin of Urdu language. So he is the one who is going to mix Persian with Hindvi, and we see the birth of Urdu language in Indian subcontinent. When we'll talk about, when we study modern Indian history and when we study post-independence India, the issue of national language becomes very prominent, that which language should be our national language. When you talk about Gandhian ideas, on which UPSC does ask a lot of questions in mains, Gandhi was in the favor of making Hindustani our national language, because he said Hindustani is a language which perfectly shows the assimilative culture of Indian society. When we talk about Hindustani, it is a blend of Hindi and Urdu. When we talk about Urdu, it is a blend of Persian and Hindvi. So it was one language, as Gandhi argued, which showed the assimilative tendencies of Indian people or Indian culture, because a variety of identities have come to India. They have settled down here. They have assimilated themselves into Indian culture. They have borrowed something from Indian culture, and they have made the cultural legacy rich. Okay, so in that context, language also becomes important. So we see birth of Urdu language too. That is also going to be a cultural legacy of this time period. When we talk about Amir Khusro, he was very close to Nizamuddin Aulia. Nizamuddin Aulia is a very prominent Sufi saint. We'll talk about him when we'll talk about Sufism. तो जब philosophy discuss करेंगे तो वहाँ पे Sufi philosophy की भी बात करेंगे. And Nizamuddin Aulia was one person who was a very prominent Sufi saint at this point of time. So when we are talking about Nizamuddin Aulia, there were a lot of people from the Sultan's Darbar or court who were his murid. One murid कौन होता है? Disciple. Okay, so the guru, the teacher, is going to be called Sheikh or Aulia or Peer. When we are talking about the disciple, the term that is used in Sufism, that is of murid. So Amir Khusro was a murid of Nizamuddin Aulia as well. And again, when we talk about Nizamuddin Aulia, his Khanka, the place where he used to reside, that also becomes very important culturally for us. Why? Because that also shows us the assimilative tendency. You live in Delhi. Okay, if you go to Nizamuddin Aulia's Dargah on Basant Panchami, it is about to come. 2nd of Feb ko hai as far as I know. So on Basant Panchami, you will see the whole place is decorated with yellow. So there is a very beautiful story when he is looking at people, when he is looking at women wearing yellow, and how then, because he was in sorrow at that point of time for some reason, and then he saw कि ये सब इतने, जब अमीर खुसरो देखता है कि these women are very happy and they are wearing yellow, so gradually what happens, he thinks that he'll be able to make his peer very happy by decorating the whole area with yellow. And this is how this tradition started in the Khanka of Nizamuddin Aulia, which is still being celebrated in the very same way on the occasion of Basant Panchami. So these are some of the cultural details that we can keep in mind, the assimilative tendencies of these Sufi Khankas. And Amir Khusro becomes a very prominent person in that context. Is that clear? So that is also a cultural legacy that we can keep in mind in terms of literature, in terms of language, in terms of traditions that are being started. Okay? So, उसके दरबार में था, ठीक है, तो दरबार में था तो उसी पीरियड से होगा, ठीक, क्लियर है ये? So this is something that we need to remember when we are talking about Khilji dynasty. Remember the important terminologies, remember the important achievements from prelims perspective, remember their attitude towards Mongols. One other detail, that Mongols were able to capture the city of Siri once for a few months. Nonetheless, Alauddin Khilji was successfully able to defeat them multiple times. Okay, chale, let us move on to the next dynasty, which is going to be Tughlaqs. Now, अब वो तो सबसे ही है ना, अब यहाँ हम यूपीएससी के पर्सपेक्टिव से लव स्टोरीज की बात नहीं कर सकते ना. If you read the history of emotions there, we can talk about it, but unfortunately that's not part of our syllabus. I'll have to invent a time machine to check that. And I am not a person from technical background, so that is a limitation that I have. Let us move on here. When we are talking about Tughlaqs, what becomes important here? There are three rulers: Ghayasuddin Tughlaq, Muhammad bin Tughlaq, and Firoz Shah Tughlaq. We need to remember their names. Then there are going to be various other rulers as well. You don't need to mug up their names because they were very, very incapable. Okay? So let us talk about these three rulers. Even here, two names you need to remember prominently. One is of Muhammad bin Tughlaq and the second is of Firoz Shah Tughlaq. Is this clear? So let us start. When we are talking about Ghayasuddin Tughlaq, he is the one who is founder of this particular dynasty. And there is this very popular story associated with him that he had a rift with Nizamuddin Aulia. So again, he will repeat the same process. Pura ye expansion ka jo hoga, he is going to do the same. And with respect to this expansion only, he was out of Delhi for some time. And since he had a rift with Nizamuddin Aulia is supposed to have said that you are going out of Delhi, but you will not be able to come back to Delhi. And he was coming back, he was on the borders of Delhi. Then there is a murid who is going to his Khanka and telling him ki wo to wapas aa rahe hain. And then he said, Delhi durast, ki Delhi abhi dur hai, Delhi is far away. And what happens is a very unfortunate incident where he accidentally died. Now there are some historians from that period, contemporary period, who have mentioned this incident as a conspiracy of Muhammad bin Tughlaq. That Muhammad bin Tughlaq did a conspiracy कि उसका क्या था, pavilion था. There was a pavilion in which he was living. So how the incident has been recorded, that there were various elephants who started running there. अब elephants के दौड़ने से vibration होगा और pavilion गिर जाएगा because it is not a stable structure. Okay, and that is how he died. He was not able to reach Delhi. That is one thing that you should remember. When we what you should remember, a rift between Sultan and Sufi. Why am I telling you this? There are going to be some Sufis who will have good relations with political power, because when we are talking about Sultan, he is the political head. When we are talking about these Sufis, they held a lot of spiritual power. So they also in a way became a symbol of authority for the population. So when we are talking about Ghayasuddin Tughlaq, he did not have good relations with whom? Nizamuddin Aulia. Is this clear? Now, during this period, we also come across a particular tradition called Tarikh. What is the tradition of Tarikh? Tarikh is a tradition of history writing. Okay? वो तारीख डेट जिससे दिनांक लेके आते हैं ना कि तारीख क्या है, तो तारीख टर्म जो है वो यहाँ से आता है. When we are talking about तारीख, it is a tradition of history writing. And in this context, we come across a very important text called Tarikh-e-Firoz Shahi. Who wrote Tarikh-e-Firoz Shahi? Ziauddin Barni. So Ziauddin Barni is going to be a person who was in the court of Muhammad bin Tughlaq as well as Firoz Shah Tughlaq. So it's very interesting. So what happens that Firoz Shah Tughlaq did not like Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Okay. Now Ziauddin Barni was in the court of Muhammad bin Tughlaq. So if you are in someone's court, that means the Sultan is paying you. So you are not going to be completely unbiased while recording history. That is why we look at various sources, so that we can reach to a conclusion where we try to free of bias as much as possible. Okay, so that is why it becomes important to look at other sources as well. Now, what is our story here? That Ziauddin Barni was in the court of Muhammad bin Tughlaq. He is going to record details of his time period. Now see, when we talk about the tradition of Tarikh, we have plenty of information. When we talk about ancient India, बार-बार ये चीज कहते हैं paucity of sources. Why? Because in this way history was not being recorded. We have to look for sources where we can find references of political life. In medieval period, we are finding a tradition which is attributed to history writing. So we have plenty of sources. That is why we have a lot of information of this particular period. So Ziauddin Barni was in his court. He was recording history of the period of Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Now before he could have submitted the work, Muhammad bin Tughlaq died. So what will he do? अब ये तारीफों से भरा जो किताब है वो पकड़ाएगा फिरोज शाह तुगलक को. He is not going to be happy about it. So he removed a few pages, and that is how we get two versions of Tarikh-e-Firoz Shahi. So when we read about Muhammad bin Tughlaq, there is this statement that we often come across, that he was a mad king, as it has been said by various people, that what he was thinking and what he was doing was not making a lot of sense. Why? Because earlier historians were relying on the second version. We had not come across the first version. When we look at the first version, we look at the reasons why he was doing what he did. Then it starts making sense. Okay, so that is what the story behind this is. When we are looking at sources, what kind of sources are we referring to? What is the intention of the person who has composed that particular source? That also comes into play. Okay, now let us come to Tarikh-e-Firoz Shahi. I'll tell you a few things about Tarikh-e-Firoz Shahi. One thing, that Barni himself is calling that he is somebody who is going to record history, and he is going to record history free of bias as much as it is possible. Okay, so that is what he himself writes in the preface of Tarikh-e-Firoz Shahi. He starts recording the history from the period of Balban. And he said that I have used the sources which were at my disposal. तो उसके पहले शायद किसी ने जो भी लिखा होगा वो सबको ले करके और उस पीरियड से वो हिस्ट्री रिकॉर्ड करना शुरू करता है. And he records his history till the reign of till the reign of Firoz Shah. And since he had presented the text to Firoz Shah, it is known as Tarikh-e Firoz Shahi. So if there is a statement that Tarikh-e-Firoz Shahi tells us about the reign of Firoz Shah Tughlaq only, it's a wrong statement. It tells us the history of Delhi Sultanate from the period of Balban to the period of Firoz Shah Tughlaq. Okay. Now let us come to the character of Muhammad bin Tughlaq. When we talk about Muhammad bin Tughlaq, अच्छा एक और चीज यहाँ पे ध्यान में रखिएगा, तुगलकाबाद, the city of Tughlaqabad, which was built during the time of Ghayasuddin Tughlaq, and it was a cursed city as it is said. तो ये श्राप था कि यहाँ पर कोई बस नहीं पाएगा. If you go to Tughlaqabad even today, बहुत वीरान सा लगता है. If you go alone, you will feel very scared at that place. At least that has been my experience. So it is a place which has been abandoned and lies mostly in ruins. Okay, so there are a lot of cities which these sultans are constructing during the period of Delhi Sultanate. Another very prominent city that you might have heard of or you might have visited is Firoz Shah Kotla. So if you go to Firoz Shah Kotla, it was built by Firoz Shah Tughlaq. Okay, and it is called the city of jinns. Especially if you go there on Thursday, you will see various people lighting incense there, and they leave a letter. उसमें अपना wish छोड़ देते हैं कि ये मेरा wish है और इसको पूरा किया जाएगा. अब कितना पूरा होता है कितना नहीं, I don't know, but this is a tradition which is still alive, and it has been called the city of jinns. If you go to Firoz Shah Kotla, you will also come across an Ashokan pillar on top of it. So Firoz Shah Tughlaq brought 2 Ashokan pillars to Delhi. Okay, one of them from Bairat, one of them from Meerut. So he brought 2 Ashokan pillars to Delhi. One of them is, if you have been to North Campus, there is this hospital, Hindu Rao Hospital. उसके back gate से जब निकलते हैं तो उसके ठीक सामने वहाँ पे हमको वो Ashokan pillar दिखता है. So he put those pillars here and he himself did not know कि वो अशोक के pillars हैं. और उसके ऊपर जो लिखा हुआ है वो अशोक के inscriptions हैं. तो it is a recorded history in Tarikh-e-Firoz Shahi that he asked 2 people in the court who were learned कि क्या लिखा है इसके ऊपर. तो उन्होंने कहा बादशाह ये लिखा है इसके, सुल्तान ये लिखा है इसके ऊपर कि जो इस पिलर को यहाँ पे लेके आएगा वो बहुत लंबे समय तक रेन करने वाला सुल्तान होगा. So flattery was also common in court. That is what the incident tells us. Nonetheless, let us move back to this character. These are some of the interesting details from the cultural lives of this particular time. So when we are talking about Muhammad bin Tughlaq, what he is doing, see, he is somebody who is called a mad king. Why? Because he had a lot of innovative ideas, but whenever he was implementing them, he failed miserably. So if you look at the character of Alauddin Khilji, he also had innovative ideas, but he was able to implement those ideas successfully. That is where the difference lies between the character of Alauddin Khilji and Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Okay, he is somebody who has been said that he was way ahead of his times. When we read his experiments, we understand why it is said. Okay, now he is also someone who was highly educated, and he was a person who did not discriminate against other people on the basis of their identity in recruitment process. So he said that I am going to recruit people from all backgrounds, no matter what their social status is. So he is the one who is saying it, who is recruiting people from the lowest strata of the Indian society as well. But when we are talking about the nobility, are other people going to be comfortable with it? He is the one who is not discriminating against others, but he is not going to change the mindset of other nobles. So that is a reason why his nobility was not very cohesive. There are going to be factions amongst his nobility. That is going to be one limitation. Is this clear? Second thing, when we are talking about him, he was somebody who was also an expansionist. Alauddin Khilji was also an expansionist. When we talk about Alauddin Khilji, he was practical enough to understand that he can rule North India properly. He will not be able to rule Deccan or South India. So direct control is not possible due to logistical problems. That is what Alauddin Khilji had understood very practically. He was using wealth of that area by continuous raids. When we talk about Muhammad bin Tughlaq, he was not practical enough to understand it. He said that I am going to win the areas of Deccan, I am going to win the areas of South, and this was not enough for him. He said that I am going to go to Central Asia as well. So when we look at him, he was an expansionist by nature, but he was not practical enough to understand the logistical problems of that time. कि भाई दिल्ली में बैठ के इतना बड़ा साम्राज्य नहीं कंट्रोल कर सकते हैं. He could not understand it. Okay, so when we look at him, what he is going to do, ये जो पूरा यहाँ तक चल रहा है, जो चल रहा है नॉर्थ में, दोआब में, that these people are going to go to north, to Malwa, to Doab, to Bengal, to Gujarat. This is something that he also did. Apart from that, he also went to Deccan. He went to parts of South India. He conquered those areas and he said that I am going to rule these areas directly. These areas are going to be part of my Sultanate. Is this clear? Now, if we talk about Yadavas, Kakatiyas, Hoysalas, Pandyas, what is going to happen here? They'll be completely uprooted, because those are the areas that Muhammad bin Tughlaq is going to conquer. When we talk about Alauddin Khilji, Malik Kafur was going there and collecting tributes from those rulers. He was looting their palaces, he was looting their temples. Coming back, those rulers were able to exist. When we are talking about Muhammad bin Tughlaq, he completely uprooted them and won over those areas. Is this clear? So keep this in mind. He is going to win all these areas. Now, in the texts, there is one other expedition which has been mentioned, Karachil expedition. And historians have debated long over it, what areas Karachil actually had. Okay. They have come to a conclusion that they were probably the areas of present-day Kumaon and Garhwal, where he sent his expedition. So, mountainous region में भेजा है. Again, he was not practical. Here, he did not understand that those terrains are going to be very challenging for people who are not accustomed to the lifestyle which was prevalent in those areas. And very handful of people, some records say 3 people, some records say 5 people were able to come back. So that expedition also failed miserably. He had the ambition of winning Khorasan, that has been identified as Central Asia. So he had the ambition of winning Central Asia as well, which could not fructify due to various reasons, and he abandoned that idea. But he had that plan in mind. Is this clear? So when we talk about Muhammad bin Tughlaq, one practical thing that we need to understand, that he was able to defeat Mongols. Mongols did not win over his areas. Is this clear? Now he has expanded his empire to a large extent. When we talk about his sultanate, there are going to be various rebellions as well. And he did not have somebody trustworthy as Alauddin Khilji had. So what he will do, he'll keep running from the length to the breadth of the empire to crush the rebellions which were taking place on his own. So that is also going to be one thing which worked negatively for Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Now coming back to his policies. When we come to his policies, what is he doing? The first policy that we study is transfer of capital. Okay, so he is ruling from Delhi. He'll realize that he is not able to control the areas of Deccan or South very effectively. So he'll think, let us move to Deccan. And he made a capital there. So there was this city Devgiri, which used to be the capital of Yadavas. He renamed it as Daulatabad. And he moved the capital here. Now, when he is moving the capital here, what is it that he is doing? He is building roads, he is building sarais, and he is asking people of nobility and Sufis who will be moving here, not the whole city of Delhi. Okay, so important administrative officials, important people from the nobility and some of the Sufi saints. He asked them to move to Daulatabad. Now, it is hundreds of miles away from Delhi, and he is commencing this travel in peak of summer. So it is not going to be practical. The idea was innovative, that if you are in Deccan, you will be able to control north as well as south properly. But when the transfer of capital is happening, it is happening in the peak of summer, and a lot of people will die due to the extreme heat. Some of them who were able to reach Daulatabad, they are going to feel homesick because they were not accustomed to the lifestyle which was prevalent in Deccan. Okay, so they are not going to feel very comfortable. Very soon what he is going to realize कि भाई यहाँ आए हैं तो Deccan और South तो control हो रहा है, but I have left the frontier open. Mongols can attack any time and they are much bigger threat. So he will decide to shift the capital back to Delhi. Now people are going to be irritated with him कि भाई क्या कर रहा है, कभी यहाँ लेके जा रहा है, कभी वहाँ लेके जा रहा है. So this is an experiment which will be very much criticized and it is going to fail miserably. Okay. So the idea is innovative, the implementation is faulty because he was not practical to understand that you cannot leave the frontier open, and especially when there is a powerful enemy and there has been a history of attacks from that frontier region. Is this clear? So sometimes you will see when we study the experiments of Muhammad bin Tughlaq, you will realize that sometimes he was impractical, लेकिन कभी-कभी उसकी किस्मत ही खराब थी. जहाँ पे कर भी रहा है practically, तो वहाँ पे किस्मत साथ नहीं दे रही है. So both the things are at play. Now when we look at this particular experiment, it ended in a very disastrous manner. But there was a very positive impact for Deccan because the Sufis who had moved here, they decided to stay. They did not go back. And when they stayed here, there are two texts. Now the texts are compilation. Okay, so it is not attributed to a single person. So two texts, Chakhi-nama and Charkha-nama. What do we mean by Chakhi-nama? चक्की होता है ना जिसको पीसते हैं. सो द ग्राइंडिंग व्हील. पहले लोग क्या करते थे, पहले तो मशीन्स नहीं थी, तो वो चक्की पे आटा ऐसे गोल गोल जो घूम के ऐसे पीसते हैं उस पे पीसा करते थे. एंड इफ यू गो टू द रूरल एरियाज इवन टुडे एंड if you manage to find some of the households where people are still using that to grind some grains, you will come across very beautiful songs that women have specially composed, and that tells you about the daily life activities, the agony that they go through, the happiness that they experience. It tells you about that. So they have been singing these kind of songs to express themselves. Now in a world where we hardly find records being recorded by women, these kind of songs offer us an insight into the lives of women. So when we look at a text called Chaki-nama or Charkha-nama, Charkha that means spinning wheel, कि जब कपड़े बुन रहे हैं तो उसके आसपास जो गाने गाते थे. So these Sufis are very instrumental in recording these songs into Chaki-nama and Charkha-nama, and these texts give us an insight into daily lives of people. So that is a very important cultural impact that they had. When they are going to go there, they are going to bring that assimilative culture with Sufism had with itself in the area of Deccan as well. What that culture is, that we will study in Sufism. Okay, but here you should understand that Sufis are bringing a different kind of cultural life into the area of Deccan, and that was a byproduct of the move that Muhammad bin Tughlaq had decided to make. Is this clear? So that is another thing that we can remember from prelims perspective. Now let us come back to the second experiment. So what he is doing, there was a shortage of silver worldwide at this point of time. Okay, so what is happening? He decided that I should introduce token currency. Now in the second version, this reason has not been given. In the first version, वी फाइंड दिस रीजन कि भाई शॉर्टेज है सिल्वर का, इसके लिए ये कर रहा है. सो ही इज इंट्रोड्यूसिंग टोकन करेंसी. सो व्हाट ही डिड, ही इज इंट्रोड्यूसिंग कॉपर कॉइन्स, और उनको ये कह रहा है कि द वैल्यू विल बी सिमिलर टू द टंका दैट आर सिल्वर coins. So this was a very innovative experiment that he tried to do. The idea of token currency, if you look at our currency today, we are also using token currency. जो हमारा 100 रुपए का नोट है या 500 का नोट है, that is just a piece of paper. We value it as 500 rupee or 100 rupee or whatever note or coin that we have, because the government or Reserve Bank of India is saying that. So it does not have an intrinsic value of 500 rupee. जब हुआ था demonetization तो यही नोटों को बहाया जा रहा था. It lost their value. Okay, so what do we mean by token currency? A currency which does not have an intrinsic value of that particular amount, but the government acknowledges that it values this much. So this is what he tried to do. Now copper is very common in India. लोगों ने घर को टकसाल बना दिया. They started minting their own coins. Now there are a lot of duplicate coins in the market. Do you remember in 2019 or 20 बहुत सारे 10 के सिक्के आ गए थे बाजार में जो नकली थे. तो हम वो देख के लेते थे कि वो 10 जो है वो कैसे लिखा हुआ है, असली है कि नकली है. And eventually it had to be accepted as the 10 rupee का coin because there were so many of those coins in the market. यही काम इसने किया कि भाई अब कैसे हम बदलें, कैसे हम ये चीज आइडेंटिफाई करें, which ones are the real ones, which ones are the duplicate. Now the coins are in circulation. If the sultan says कि नहीं एक असली है एक नकली है तो पैनिक कर जाएंगे लोग. There will be an economic chaos. So he said that all the coins, whatever the duplicate coin is, take it to me and I am going to change it. तो उसने क्या किया, बोल दिया कि चेंज करके तुमको असली वाला कॉइन दे देंगे. People started minting more coins कि भाई मिल रहा है नकली के बदले असली. And the treasury almost depleted due to this experiment. So it had a very negative impact on the financial health of the Sultanate. Is this clear? So an experiment which was very innovative but probably was not practical. There was a reason behind it, but it did not succeed. Now, if we look at the idea of token currency, was he the first person to introduce it? China में कुबलई खान already कर चुका था. And he had done it very successfully. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि टोकन करेंसी का आइडिया मिडीवल टाइम्स में सक्सेसफुल हो नहीं सकता था. इसकी शायद थोड़ी किस्मत भी खराब थी. तो इसके साथ कुछ ना कुछ ऐसा होता रहता था कि whatever he is trying to do, he is failing in that miserably. Okay, so Kublai Khan from China had already successfully implemented the idea of token currency. But when Muhammad bin Tughlaq is introducing it in Indian subcontinent, he is failing miserably. अब ट्रेजरी में पैसा है नहीं, क्या करेंगे? अलाउद्दीन खिलजी ने किया था दोआब में टैक्स बढ़ाने का काम. So he will also try to do the same. So he increased the taxes in दोआब. एक्सपेरिमेंट वही कर रहा है लेकिन फेल होगा. अब यहाँ क्या हुआ? He raised the taxes in दोआब. In the very year there was the situation of drought. सूखा पड़ गया तो अब फसल हुई ही नहीं, तो कैसे वसूलेगा वहां से टैक्स? Now he was not informed about it. Back then people did not have communication channels the way we have today. So when he was not informed, वो तो यही ऑर्डर देगा ना कि भाई जाओ टैक्स वसूल करके लाओ. And officials started collecting the taxes. When he was informed about it, he immediately asked them not to collect taxes in that area. But they did not listen to him. कि चलो सुल्तान को नहीं देना, खुद के पास आ जाएगा पैसा. So they kept collecting the taxes and it led to widespread discontent amongst the peasants in that area. So when he is raising the taxes in Doab, this experiment is also failing miserably due to the natural calamity that took place that very year. Okay. Now, to improve the condition of peasants, he opened a department of Amire Kohi. That is a term that we should remember from our prelims perspective. A department for the welfare of peasants. What this department used to do, this department used to give loans to the peasants at a very lower rate so that they can buy good quality seeds, they can buy good quality agricultural implements to increase the fertility of the land. Okay, so he opened this department, but due to the corruption of his own officials, it did not function properly at that time. The next Sultan, Firoz Shah Tughlaq, is going to make it very successful, and during his time, the department of Amire Kohi worked very successfully. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि इसको peasants के लिए काम नहीं करना है. He is doing the work for the peasants, but he did not succeed in it. Is this clear? So these are some of his experiments that we should keep in mind. Okay. अमीरे कोही, ठीक है, उसका जो प्रमुख होता था उसको कहते थे दीवान ए अमीरे कोही. So when the term divan is there, that means we are talking about the official. When that term is not there, we are talking about the department. Is this clear? So remember this much, when we are talking about Muhammad bin Tughlaq, he is going to die eventually, and Firoz Shah Tughlaq became the next Sultan. Now when we are talking about Firoz Shah Tughlaq as the next Sultan, some of his policies are going to be extremely conservative. He is the one, see, when we are talking about Muhammad bin Tughlaq, his policies are very much innovative. He is not going to be liked by the ulema class. Who are the ulemas? The religious groups of people. They are going to be called ulema, and the singular was alim. Now when we talk about Firoz Shah Tughlaq, his bent was conservative. Okay, so he is going to appease the older nobility as well as the ulema class. Who were the older nobility? बताया ना अभी हमने कि मोहम्मद बिन तुगलक क्या कर रहा है कि वो लोगों को मेरिट के बेसिस पे पोजीशन दे रहा है. So there are going to be a lot of people who are thrown out of the positions that they held. So they are going to be called the older nobility. What Firoz Shah Tughlaq is going to do? He is going to appease the older nobility. He is going to appease the class of ulemas. Okay, so two kinds of policies in that context we'll see. See, when we are talking about when we are talking about this particular period, another thing had happened during the time of Muhammad bin Tughlaq, that there were two empires which will be eventually formed, Vijayanagar Empire and Bahmani Kingdom in Deccan and South. So when rebellion had happened there, when people had founded their kingdoms and empires, what Firoz Shah Tughlaq decided to do, that I am not going to go to Deccan, I am not going to go to South. I am going to rule North and Eastern India. That was his plan. So geographically, if we look at the reign of Firoz Shah Tughlaq, he was not somebody who was an expansionist. He was content with what he had, that I am not going to fight wars to expand my empire. I am going to rule this area. This area will be under my direct control. That is one thing that we need to keep in mind. After that, what he started doing, he said, to appease the group of older nobility, he said that I am going to give you back your ikhtas. Not only I'll give you back the ikhtas, I am going to make it hereditary. So he made the ikhtas hereditary. So it will either go to the son. In the absence of a son, it will go to the son-in-law. Okay, that is the idea that he is coming up with. And he did the same for army. That was the disastrous part, that he made the positions in army hereditary as well. Now think about it. If you are making the position in army hereditary, what is the guarantee that the son or son-in-law is going to be equally capable? There is no guarantee for that. So if he made that position hereditary, it is going to make the army very weak in the longer run. And this is one thing which actually happened. So he is appeasing the class of nobility by making ikhta hereditary, by returning the ikhtas to them. He is making the positions in army hereditary too. Is this clear? So this is one thing that we should keep in mind. See, when we are talking about sultans coming, recruiting people on the basis of their preference, there is another additional thing that should come to our mind, that there was no clear-cut rule for the recruitment of people in nobility. It was based on the wish of the sultan. If sultan wants to keep somebody in their nobility, they are going to keep it. So when we look at the nature of nobility, it will depend upon the wish of the sultan. If sultan wants people from people who are Turks, the sultan is going to recruit them. If they want that we want to recruit people who are non-Turks, they are going to recruit them. If they want, we are going to recruit people who are of higher birth. If they want to recruit people on the basis of merit, it totally dependent upon them. Is this clear? So here when we are talking about Firoz Shah Tughlaq, he is bringing the older nobility back, providing them ikhtas, making it hereditary, making the positions in army hereditary. This is one thing that we should remember. When we are talking about his attitude towards ulemas, here also he is going to be very much of an appeasing person. So what he did, he is going to come up with conservative changes. One thing that he did was he is going to ask Brahmins also to pay jizya. So they were exempted from it. He is going to ask them to pay jizya as well. When it comes to the category of women, he'll say that you cannot go to the dargahs. Okay, so he is restricting the entry of women in cultural and religious places. That is another change that he is coming up with. So when we look at his attitude in this context, it remains very problematic. Does that mean that these are the only things that were part of Firoz Shah Tughlaq's personality? Did he not introduce any kind of positive measures in the subcontinent? That is not true. He is going to introduce some very important socio-economic measures as well. He had contributed in a cultural sense as well. So when we look at his personality, it is somewhat a grey personality. Some of the traits are very negative, some of the traits are very positive as well. So when we look at him and his economic policies, he is going to make the department of Amir-e-Kohi function very successfully, and it is going to be in the favor of the peasants. So the department of Amir-e-Kohi was providing peasants loans at a very lower rate to buy good quality seeds and agricultural implements to increase the fertility of land. That is a very positive measure that he took. So when that will happen, there will be huge surplus production as well. So growth in agriculture. When we talk about irrigation, he is going to build a lot of canals. So he is going to provide irrigation facility to peasants as well. That is another positive measure that we should keep in mind. Okay. When we are talking about craft production, is he doing some kind of change there? He is making a karkhana, royal karkhana. That is a term that we can remember. So it is like a factory, not present day factory, a factory where production was happening of handicrafts. Okay. So when we are talking about slaves, see, when any sultan is expansionist and they are attacking a particular area, they are going to capture people from that region as well. तो पूछेंगे थोड़ी कि भाई तुम्हारा क्या काम है, अच्छा तुम किसी काम के नहीं हो, तुमको छोड़ देते हैं, तुम्हारा ये काम है, तुम्हें पकड़ लेते हैं, ये तरह की चीज तो होगी नहीं. It will happen at a mass level. Okay, they are not going to ask the skill of the person they are capturing. So what he did, he realized that there are a lot of slaves who are very skilled workers. Why not put that to use? We can also train the other slaves. So he opened up a royal karkhana where these ghulams, these slaves were working, and handicraft production increased in that Karkhana. So when we are talking about him in the context of craft production, again a positive measure in that context. When it comes to trade, he established various cities. If I give you two examples from present times, Hisar and the city of Firozabad, established by him. So when we are looking at him, he is also facilitating trade by establishing cities of economic importance. That is another economic contribution that he made. Is this clear? When we look at his social policies, what kind of changes we see there? He is opening up a lot of hospitals for people. So opening up of hospitals will be one thing. Second, he said that if a person is poor, I am going to pay dowry for their daughters. Again, a person of his own times. When we look at the institution of dowry, it is a very problematic practice that people have been doing for centuries. Even after making it illegal, people have found their ways to practice it. But when we look at this time, we should also understand that for these people, welfare was providing dowry for somebody. Because for them, it was not a problematic practice. They did not have modern sensibilities to question these ideas. So what he is doing, he is paying dowry for poor people's daughters. So that according to that time period, that was also a work of welfare that he was doing. So that was another social measure that we can take into cognizance. Okay. Now coming to the cultural aspect, he is somebody who has contributed a lot culturally as well. So he is the one who also built the city of Firozshah Kotla. So he is establishing some of the important economic centers. He is also making the city of Firozshah Kotla as a political center. So that is another contribution. He is bringing two of the Ashokan pillars to Delhi. One of them was kept at Firozshah Kotla and one of them was put in the Northern Ridge area. Okay, and if you go to that area, you will find Shikargah. Shikargah kya hota hai? Shikargah is a term that you should remember, hunting lodge. So he was probably very fond of hunting. In Delhi, if you travel, I was able to come across 3 of the hunting lodges that were built by Firozshah Tughlaq. So probably he was very fond of hunting. He was building a lot of hunting lodges. He is also building a lot of step wells, that is Bavli. If you go to Bada Hindu Rao hospital that I just told you about, you will find a Bavli, a stepped well made by Firozshah Tughlaq. So these are also the cultural contributions of this particular individual by making various structures, be it in the context of building a particular city or be it in the context of making various Bavlis so that water can be preserved there. So I told you about it कि कैसे जब हम Delhi की बात करें, the location of Delhi became important, but there was one problem associated with it, water scarcity. So you will keep coming across various lakes, various hauj, various bavlis that were being constructed during the medieval period. Is that clear? So that is the cultural contribution that you can remember. Now after the death of Firozshah Tughlaq, we don't come across prominent sultans. The dynasty, the successors were very, very weak. In that context, you can remember one name if you want, in 1398, and that tells us about the weakening condition of the dynasty, that there was one particular sultan from the very same dynasty who had the ambition of going to Central Asia, who defeated Mongols very successfully. And in the very same dynasty, we find a particular Sultan Nasiruddin Mahmud in this particular year, when Taimur Lang attacked Delhi, he left the court and he ran away. So he was not even able to protect the capital city. And when Taimur Lang came here, he did huge massacre in the city. So that tells us about the weakening condition of Sultanate during this particular time. Is this clear? After that, there are two more dynasties, Sayyid dynasty and Lodi dynasty, that we'll discuss. We can take a break and then we can discuss them. When we talk about Sayyids and Lodis, there is nothing very prominent to remember here, but you should know the important terminologies from examination perspective. Okay, let us take a break. Yes. Okay, so let us continue where we left off. We had discussed details related to Tughlaq dynasty. Now we have to talk about Sayyid dynasty. So when we talk about Sayyids, they did not rule for a long time. We know that they ruled for a few decades. So 1414 to 1451, that is the time period. Again, we don't need to mug it up. I am just telling you that when we are talking about their rule, it did not last long. Nonetheless, they remain very important in the cultural history of Delhi Sultanate. What was the reason? Why would they become culturally very important? See, when we are talking about these people, Khizr Khan is going to be one person who is going to establish the rule. Now, they were not very much successful in political sense, but they were held in very high regard. What was the reason behind it? That Sayyids were tracing their descent directly from Paighambar Muhammad. So they said that they belonged to the lineage of the daughter of Paighambar Muhammad named Fatima. So they are tracing their descent from Fatima, who was the daughter of Paighambar Muhammad. So when we are talking about Islam as a religion, what becomes very important, that people who are very close to, so apart from Paighambar Muhammad, people who are going to belong to his family, direct bloodline, people who are very close to him, people who converted to Islam in the very first time, the important Sahabs and Sahabiyas, they were very much respected in Islamic societies. So here when we talk about Indian subcontinent, people who are following Islam, they are going to hold Sayyids in high regard. Why? Because they are tracing their descent from Fatima, who was the daughter of Paighambar Muhammad. So they are going to be very much respected due to their religious and cultural identity, not because of their political achievements. And they used to wear a specific kind of kula. Kula, that means a cap. Okay, we talked about it. What is a kula? What is a kabai? So kullai, kabai. Another term will be kula in that sense. So when we are talking about them, they have been called kula dharan. People who are wearing a specific type of cap. Okay, so this term becomes important when we are talking about Sayyids. Another important factual detail you can remember, that there was the ruler, there was this sultan called Alam Khan, that is going to be the last ruler. Why he becomes important? Because he voluntarily abdicated the throne in the favor of Behlol Lodi, the founder of Lodi dynasty. In Indian history, when we are looking at ancient India or medieval India, we see instances of political violence being very common. People are killing their brothers, their fathers, their uncles, their father-in-laws to become the next ruler or sultan. Here in that context, we have two very unique examples. One from ancient India, that is of Chandragupta Maurya, who abdicated the throne willingly, and second here, Alam Khan or Alam Shah, who abdicated the throne willingly. So that is why these kind of examples become rare and become important. Is this clear? So this person abdicated the throne willingly and went to Badayun, where he lived till his death. Okay, so these are a few facts that you can remember when we talk about Sayyids. Now let us move back to Lodis. When we talk about Lodis, were they very successful politically? Not very much. Okay, so they are the ones who had Afghan identity, and when we talk about Afghans, they are having tribal culture present. So that means these people are going to treat themselves as one amongst equal. not as a very controlling sultan. Okay, so this is what Behlol Lodi was doing. He'll not be liked by Sikandar Lodi. Sikandar Lodi will come kill him and declare himself the next sultan. Now, when Sikandar Lodi is coming, what becomes important in his context? He is also going to be a sultan who was very much controlling, who is going to control the lives of his nobles, who is going to make them bow down before him. So he is also going to start, reintroduce, we should say, the practice of sijda, not payabos, sijda. Okay, so sijda and payabos were the practices that Balban used to make his courtiers follow. He is making his courtiers follow the practice of sijda. He also said that if I am sending a royal farman, you need to come out of your houses and listen to it in the very same way as if the sultan is standing there. So these kind of practices he is introducing. Important things culturally are the establishment of the city of Agra by him in 1504, because Agra is going to become very important political and cultural center in the history of Indian subcontinent. So when the city of Agra is being established during Lodi period by Sikandar Lodi. So that is one information that we can keep in mind. Apart from that, he is the one who is introducing Gaje Sikandari, a measurement type which is going to be followed in the later times as well, specifically during the time of Sher Shah. So that is another achievement that you can remember from Sikandar Lodi's times. Now when Sikandar Lodi died, Ibrahim Lodi is going to come to throne. When we talk about Ibrahim Lodi, he was not somebody who was politically very much successful. During his time, we see that the area started disintegrating gradually. So I'll talk about that politics in a while when we will start the discussion on Mughal Empire, because that is related to this. Here just remember that Ibrahim Lodi was not a very successful sultan. He was not able to secure the Delhi Sultanate, and eventually in the first battle of Panipat, the foundation of Mughal Empire was laid. What was the political situation? We will discuss in a while. Is this clear? So remember this much, when we discussed the history of Delhi Sultanate, we talked about some of the important dynasties, we talked about important achievements, important political details, administrative details. We discussed what kind of changes are being introduced by the prominent sultans, and in that context, we also looked at important terminologies. We talked about the cultural achievements too. So keep all those things in mind from the examination perspective. Okay, in the next class, we will also solve the questions based on this particular topic. So you'll be able to see that if you keep these things in mind, you will be able to solve most of the questions. Okay, now let us just briefly look at the lifestyle which was prevalent during Delhi Sultanate, and after that we can move on to our next topic. So when we are talking about the lifestyle in political terms, what are the things which are becoming important here? We come across the use of a term sultan. Now the ruler is taking the title of sultan. That is one thing that becomes important. When we talk about sultan's relations with caliph, the sultan is not ruling the area according to Shariat. So it will not be called an Islamic empire. Shariat was applicable in personal matters of Muslim population. That is another thing that we need to remember. When we talk about Friday prayers, the Sultan is reading khutbah in the name of the Caliph. Okay. When we talk about the nobility, nobility depended upon the wish of the Sultan. So when we are talking about different time periods, when we are talking about different sultans, they are making their nobility, they are recruiting their nobility on the basis of their will. So there is no clear-cut law. The same goes on in the context of succession law. If we look at the succession law, it was challenged at the very earliest when Iltutmish is nominating his daughter even when he had sons. Okay, so he changed the succession norms prevalent in the world at that point of time. So that is another thing that we can keep in mind. Okay, when we are talking about nobility, remember the term Turkish Helgani as well, because that is one very prominent term that we come across. Okay, now if we talk about the administrative units here, what are the terminologies? We'll talk about Suba, we'll talk about Shik, we'll talk about Pargana. Okay, and then we'll talk about the Gram, that is the village. Okay, if we talk about the important official at the village level, that was Khut, Muqaddam or Chaudhary is another term that we come across in some of the texts. Okay, so they are going to be the local authority who will have to handle the responsibility of collecting taxes. Amil will be another term which will be used for the official who collected taxes at the upper level. Okay, so remember these administrative terminology. When we are talking about Aris, that is a department that is associated with army. When we are talking about Diwane Insha, that will be the head of correspondence. So these kind of terminologies we should keep in mind. In your revision notes also, these terms have been given. So go through that once. What do we mean by Pargana? What do we mean by Shik? So that is going to be administrative unit. If we use the term, let's say Shikdar, so the administrative official. If we use the term Amil, so the official which was related to tax collection. So in this way, we need to remember these terminologies which are of administrative importance. Okay, now when we are moving back to the economic arena, what is happening here? When we are talking about agriculture, we don't come across new crops being introduced, so that is a part where we can relax. Okay, when we are talking about the techniques, so we see Arhatta. Arhatta is a Persian wheel which is being introduced that made irrigation process easy and much more fruitful for the agriculturalists, due to which surplus production is going to increase. That is another thing. Arhatta, you should remember the term as well. We see Firoz Shah Tughlaq building various canals for irrigation purpose. So we see people making efforts on their own. We see state taking responsibility at times as well. So both the things are present here. We see state taking the responsibility of making Hajj, Bawli. So these kind of structures are also present at this point of time. If we talk about craft production, so then we see Royal Karkhana being opened by Firoz Shah Tughlaq. On part of people, there were various crafts people engaged in craft production too. When we talk about trade, so long distance trade will resume with Central Asia, and there have been scholars like Muhammad Habib, Irfan Habib, they have used the term urban revolution to talk about this particular phenomenon, that various economic centers started coming up and long distance trade grew immensely. Okay, so that is another thing that we can remember. Resumption of long distance trade with Central Asia and production in this context increased as well. We have talked about establishment of various cities across the development of Delhi Sultanate. So that is another thing that you can remember. If we talk about social life, that is going to remain more or less the same. We see the practice of Johar being present at this time too. Okay, so if we talk about, let's say, Varna system, that is going to be present, caste system present, condition of women more or less miserable. So these things are not changing. If we talk about justice, so when we are talking about Hindus, they are being given justice due to Shastric laws. When we are talking about Muslims, Shariat laws will be applicable. So these things are present. When we talk about religion and grant being given to religious orders, there is one term that we come across, that is Inam land. Okay, so we have talked about Khalisa land. Khalisa land was land of the state. We talked about Ikhta, land being given to officials. We come across a particular term called Inam land, so land being granted to religious institutions. So earlier also we were talking about land grants in ancient period. Here you will come across various kinds of land grants as well. You need to remember the term inam land here in that context. Is this clear? When we talk about army, yes, religious institutions. When we talk about army, so we have talked about Alauddin Khilji introducing reform like Dag and Chehra to ensure that there were capable soldiers in the army. So these things we should keep in mind. And here see, when you are talking about these things from prelims perspective, you need to remember important literature, important terminologies. When it comes to mains examination, then an overall understanding becomes important, because in mains examination what they ask you, important socio-economic changes introduced during Delhi Sultanate and what was the impact on society. So there we need to keep this in mind in a comprehensive manner. Nonetheless, we have revised it, but from prelims perspective, remember the terms, remember the literature, remember the important achievements. Is this clear? Cultural, we have discussed birth of Urdu language, Persian becoming the court language. We have talked about important texts wherever they were relevant. We have talked about important architecture as well wherever that was relevant. We have talked about Indo-Islamic architecture, to the features which were present in Indo-Islamic architecture. That is also something that we have seen. So keep those things in mind. I hope this is clear. So we'll move on to the next topic, and questions related to Delhi Sultanate and Mughal period we'll do together. Okay. So now let us talk about Mughal Empire. Once we have completed Mughal Empire, then we'll move to south. See, during this time Vijayanagar Empire is formed, but we'll talk about that once we have completed Mughal Empire. Now, what kind of questions are asked from Mughal Empire in prelims examination? Are questions being asked or not? Asked what kind of questions? हाँ? कौन से साल में पूछा है? What did I ask here? मेंस में भी नहीं पूछा है जितना मुझे पता है, फिर कोई और पेपर देख रहे हैं आप, शायद किसी स्टेट का पेपर होगा वो। यूपीएससी ने तो नहीं पूछा है पिछले 10 सालों में। यूपीएससी ने एक क्वेश्चन पूछा है, द स्पिरिट ऑफ मिडीवल एज ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ पर्शियन सोर्सेस। So what was the spirit of medieval age on the basis of Persian sources? Explain. That is one question जहाँ हम मुगल पे आएंगे. Otherwise, the second question from Mughal medieval period that is present there, the one that I just said, कि what were the changes introduced on a socio-economic level during Delhi Sultanate. So वहाँ पे तो clearly Delhi Sultanate लिखा है, तो मुगल से वो question ऐसे भी नहीं है. Let us remain relevant to the course. क्या पूछते हैं prelims में? In prelims, you will see that questions are of cultural importance. Okay, when we are talking about last 10 years questions from Mughal period, mostly the questions that have been asked, they are of cultural importance. So questions have been asked on literature, questions have been asked on important terminologies, on important cultural institutions, on painting tradition, on architecture. So it remains relevant in cultural sense. Have they asked questions about rulers or wars? No. They have given the name of ruler in cultural context. For example, when they are asking you about painting tradition, so then they are asking you who has introduced this particular kind of painting style, or during whose period this particular text has been translated. So in cultural sense, rulers are being referred to. They are not asking you about their time span. They are not asking you about the battles they are fighting. This has been the trend in the last 10 years. Okay. So on the basis of that, we are going to talk about the important Bashas. We'll talk about their battles as well, but that is not something which is very relevant from our prelims perspective, because we have to go by the trend. Okay, so we need to understand that culture becomes much more important here when we are talking about prelims examination. Okay, so now keeping that in mind, let us start our discussion on Mughal Empire. Okay, so I'll give you a brief background, a brief political background, I should say, what was happening in North India, what was happening in Central Asia. Then we'll be able to understand the foundations of Mughal Empire. Okay. So, when we are talking about North India, Delhi, that was the center of power. Okay. Who was present here? I'm just writing the initials. Ibrahim Lodi. Okay. Ibrahim Lodi is present here. A brother of Ibrahim Lodi was in Bengal. Muhammad Lodi. You don't need to mug up the names. Just remember the details. Remember the fragmentation that we are discussing here. Okay. When we are talking about Malwa region, a Rajput ruler called Medini Rai had become prominent. There were smaller dynasties as well, but he was the one who is leading them. When we talk about Rajputana, Rana Sanga had emerged as a very powerful leader in Rajputana. When we are talking about northwestern frontier provinces, Daulat Khan Lodi was a Lodi noble who was prominent in this region. Is this much clear? Now let us come to Central Asia. What is happening in Central Asia? There are three prominent empires which were present. Which ones? Ottomans were present, Safavids were present, Uzbeks were present, and they were very powerful. So they will contest with each other. That is one thing. And in this particular situation, Babur is trying to make his fortunes in Central Asia. Will he be able to be very successful? No. All of them are very powerful empires, and he will not be able to carve out his own empire in Central Asia. So he is somebody who is looking for stability in life. Stability is not the situation is not conducive for him to find stability in Central Asia. And here we see that Rana Sanga is forming an alliance with Medini Rai, and he has the ambition of controlling Delhi. Daulat Khan Lodi does not like Ibrahim Lodi. Okay, Ibrahim Lodi himself is a not very capable Sultan. So what will happen? Be it Rana Sanga or be it Daulat Khan Lodi, both of them invited Babur to invade this region. They asked him, come here, attack Ibrahim Lodi, he has a lot of wealth, loot that wealth, and they thought he'll go back. So there is a history to it, that there have been invaders who had come, looted the wealth, gone back. A very recent history was of Taimur Lung. And when we talk about Babur, he traced his descent both from Taimur Lung as well as Changiz Khan. So what will these people think? That he belongs to their lineage. He'll come, loot the wealth, go back. That is why in the very start I said what is happening in Central Asia is also impact the developments in North India. Okay, so here he does not have a conducive environment to build his own empire. When they'll invite him, he is going to accept the invitation and he'll come here, attack Ibrahim Lodi, and the battle will be fought in Panipat. So first battle of Panipat, 1526. Again, UPSC is not asking these dates. Why am I giving you this date? So that you have it in mind. 1526, Babur is coming and foundation of Mughal Empire is being led. During this time in this area, Deccan and South, there is already a very strong empire, Vijayanagar Empire. So Vijayanagar Empire is present here, and Krishna Deva Rai is ruling 1509 to 1529. Okay, so here there is a very strong ruler who is present. Portuguese are also present. 1510, Albuquerque had captured Goa. Okay, so a lot of other things are also happening when we go to Deccan, when we go to South India. Often we have this misconception in mind कि इसको अगर हम Portuguese पढ़ें वो तो modern India में पढ़ते हैं, तो वो तो तब आए होंगे. But if you look at the timeline, Portuguese were present before the foundation of Mughal Empire. Is this clear? So remember this as well, that simultaneously other things are also happening in Deccan and South. Now let us come back to North. What happened? He came, he was able to defeat Ibrahim Lodi. First battle of Panipat. He is going to employ the Rumi technique. So if Rumi technique is a term that has been given, a technique which is employed in warfare. There are two parts to it, Tulu Gama and Araba. When we say Tulu Gama, that means dividing the army in smaller part. Araba, so you will put a tank here before this. So Barud, gunpowder was used by बाबर. So what is happening? इब्राहिम लोदी का जो आर्मी है हाथी खड़ा कर दिया आगे और ये लेके आया है गन पाउडर. एक बार ब्लास्ट होगा, the elephants are going to run backwards and they'll kill the army of Ibrahim Lodi. Okay, so he is going to employ the techniques of Tulugama and Araba, which worked in his favor. Does that mean that Indians were not aware of gunpowder? No, Indians knew of gunpowder. Okay, from China, from when Portuguese are coming, they are writing that here we find these people keeping gunpowder. Why gunpowder becomes important in the context of Mughal Empire is because of gunpowder. Babur was able to secure victory very easily over a very large army. That is why there are certain scholars who have called Mughal Empire a gunpowder empire. We should not confuse ourselves with this idea that Mughals are the one who are introducing gunpowder in India. Gunpowder, knowledge of gunpowder was present in Indian subcontinent before Babur came. Babur is the one who is using gunpowder in the first battle of Panipat. Is this clear? So remember this. Now what was the idea? He is going to go back. Did he go back? No. कहाँ जाएगा? उसके fortunes तो बन नहीं रहे हैं वहाँ पे. So here Daulat Khan Lodi was also killed. Now a very prominent threat will be Rana Sanga. So then the battle of Khanwa is going to take place and he is taking the title of Ghazi. Who is a Ghazi? The one who fights for the religion. So he is saying that I am a Ghazi. See, rulers have used religion for their benefit. Here you look, if you look at him, he is saying, Islam में क्या है कि शराब हराम होती है, कि you should not consume wine. And he is asking the soldiers to break the bottles of wine. He himself is breaking that. So before that he was drinking wine. And now he is saying that I am a Ghazi suddenly. So these kind of ideas have been used by rulers to pump up their soldiers, so that they are more charged to fight a particular battle. When we talk about Babur, he has also broken temples, but a very major reason lies behind in the political victory. Okay, so that is one thing that has been argued by various scholars. Now he is fighting the battle of Khanwa, taking the title of Ghazi, and he was able to defeat Rana Sanga. Rana Sanga was not killed in this particular battle. He was killed by one of the nobles. The noble poisoned him because Rana Sanga was very ambitious and they thought कि भाई जिंदा रहेगा तो लड़ता रहेगा. So he was killed by one of the nobles. However, we know that in the battle of Khanwa, Babur registered victory again and he was able to defeat a very powerful contender named Rana Sanga. Now what will happen? Medini Rai is there. So he is going to defeat Medini Rai as well. So battle of Chanderi will take place and Medini Rai will be defeated as well. Then Daulat Khan, Muhammad Lodi, because he is the brother, so he will be the rightful contender to the throne of Delhi. Okay, so in the battle of Ghagra, he was also defeated and killed. So all the powerful and important contenders were killed by Babur in subsequent battles. He is the one who is laying the foundation of Mughal Empire. He will die in 1530. Did he have time to consolidate the empire? No, he is just laying the foundations of the empire. He is going to various regions, defeating different contenders to the throne. He will not have the time to consolidate the empire. So that is one story that we need to remember. If we talk about Babur in cultural sense, is there any contribution that he has made culturally? What? बाबरनामा और तुजुके बाबरी. Babarnama is from Akbar's period. Tuzuke Babri, he is writing his autobiography named as Tuzuke Babri. So Tuzuk is a tradition of autobiography writing. Tuzuke Babri was in Turkish language. It is going to be translated in Persian language during Akbar's time. And that is the text Babar Nama, which was translated by Rahim, a very famous poet as well, who used to write in Braj language. Okay, so when you are talking about Babar, the name that you have to use is Tuzuke Babri. Babar Nama is the Persian translation of the Turkish text Tuzuke Babri. These are the technical things that we need to remember. अगर पूछ दिया बाबर नामा और रहीम लिख दिया, आप तो गलत कराएंगे, लेकिन है वो सही. ठीक है, तो तुजुके बाबरी, बाबर, ट्रांसलेशन बाय अब्दुल रहीम खाने खाना. Is this clear? So when we are talking about Tuzuke Babri, what Babur is recording? Babur is recording his experiences. Babur is recording about his victories and the battles that he had fought. Babur is also giving a reference to Krishna Deva Rai. And he is writing that he is a very powerful ruler in southern part of India. Okay. So again, why am I saying this? Because often we don't connect the dots. हमें ये लगता है बाबर क्यों, अगर ये स्टेटमेंट दे दिया दैट इन तुजुके बाबरी वी फाइंड रेफरेंस टू कृष्णदेव राय, हमारे जहन में सीधा क्या आएगा, उसके साथ थोड़ी लड़ा था, वो तो साउथ में था, उससे क्या लेना देना तुजुके बाबरी का. बट दीज पीपल आर अवेयर ऑफ द पॉलिटिकल लैंडस्केप ऑफ इंडिया. सो ही इज ऑल्सो रिकॉर्डिंग द डिटेल्स ऑफ कृष्णदेव राय. ही हैज बीन मेंशन्ड इन तुजुके बाबरी. What else is he writing? He is writing about the flora and fauna, natural vegetation. He is writing about the birds and different kind of animals that he is encountering. So it is a very rich history of the ecology of that time period as well that Babur is recording. Is this clear? So he is writing about all these things as well when he is recording Tuzuke Babri. So that is an important text that we should keep in mind, autobiography of Babur in Turkish language. When we talk about cultural contribution in the context of architecture, Char Bagh becomes important. So when we are talking about these people, so he is the one who is tracing the descent from both Mongols as well as Taimur Lung. So Turco-Mongol theory of kingship will become important when we are talking about these Mughal dynasty. Okay, now here keep this one thing is mine. ये तो हो गया ना हमारा, चले हाँ. चार बाग. Have you seen any of the Mughal architectures? Which ones? आगरा फोर्ट देखा है. हुमायूं's tomb गए, दिल्ली में ही है. If you go to Humayun's tomb, you will see that there is this tomb. I'm giving you the example of Humayun's tomb because we are sitting in Delhi and it is located in Delhi. So you might have come across this kind of setup. यहाँ से पानी बहता है. Here water is flowing and we see gardens on 4 sides. Miniature gardens will also be present. So this is called Char Bagh. It is a tradition of garden making that is being introduced by Mughals in India. If you go to any of the Mughal architecture, you are bound to find Charbagh there. So this is another cultural contribution that can be attributed to Babur and to an extent Mughal Empire. During the time of Jahangir, we see large-scale making of charbags in various parts of North India. Okay, here when we are talking about Babur, he is introducing it. He is going to make various charbags as well. Is this clear? So charbag is the new addition. They are also going to follow Indo-Islamic architecture. What will happen during the Mughal times, that the architecture is going to be much more elaborate. If you look at Humayun's tomb, और if you look at फिरोज शाह तुगलक्स tomb, बहुत एक बड़ा डिफरेंस है कि जो हम डोम देखते हैं उसका साइज बहुत बड़ा है जब हम हुमायूं's tomb को देखते हैं. When we are talking about Mughal architecture, another change that will be introduced, a very beautiful blend of Rajput style into Mughal architecture that will be visible from the times of Akbar. Okay, so that is another change that you can see when we are talking about Mughal architecture. Is that clear? So keeping that in mind, let us move forward now. Now, when he will die, Humayun is going to become the next emperor. Now, when Humayun is becoming the emperor, Humayun is somebody जिसकी कहानी बड़ी फिल्मी है. वो बादशाह से बिल्कुल बन जाता है भिखारी की भाग, माने भिखारी एक्चुअल सेंस में नहीं, वो पोएटिकली कहा गया है, पोएटिक तरीके से स्कॉलर्स के द्वारा, कि वो राजा से रंक और रंक से राजा बनने की कहानी है उसकी वापस, कि पहले वो बादशाह है, फिर वो भाग के दूसरे की जगह उसको शरण लेना पड़ रहा है, और फिर आ रहा है, फिर अपना जीत रहा है एम्पायर वापस, और अनफॉर्चुनेटली जीत रहा है, साल भर बाद डेथ हो जाती है, सीढ़ियों से गिर के उसकी मौत हो जाती है. So when we are looking at the life of Humayun, one thing that we should keep in mind that his time period was very unstable. When he is coming to the throne, it is for just 10 years when he had to tackle with very powerful figures like Sher Shah. Sher Shah was very prominent in Ganga Yamuna Doab region. He was defeated eventually and he will have to go to Rajputana. He will find a shelter there, to be precise in Amarkot, where Akbar was born. From there he will go to present day Iran and he will take the help from Safavid ruler. Then he will come back in 1555. He will defeat the Suri Badshah, he'll become the Badshah again and he'll die within a year. So here what is important for us to understand, the process of consolidation will not be completed even in the time of Humayun. Why? Because of instability that he had to face. So we see that foundation has been laid. Even the successor has come who is trying to consolidate the empire, but the process was incomplete. It will be Akbar who is going to consolidate the Mughal empire. Is this clear? If you look at the questions, most of the questions from Mughal empire have been asked from the period of Akbar, because he is the one who is introducing a lot of cultural changes. Okay, so we'll come to Akbar, but before that, let us understand some of the important details here. Now, when Humayun is coming to the throne, he had to deal with his own brothers. His father had asked him to be kind to the brothers, the advice that he took very seriously in the time when probably he shouldn't have taken it very seriously. So brothers are always betraying him and he is always forgiving them. Okay, so that is one problem that he had to tackle. कोई भी लड़ाई लड़ने जा रहे हैं बोलेंगे हाँ आर्मी भेजेंगे ही नहीं, and he is going to face the consequences. The second problem that he had to tackle with was Sher Shah. Back then he was known as Sher Khan. When he is going to become the Basha, he will call himself Sher Shah. So when we are talking about Sher Khan, that was another challenge for Humayun. He was coming from a family of a Jagirdar who had taken over the power in Doab region. So he is the one who is going to become very powerful in Doab, and any ruler who is ruling North India would want to take the control of Doab. So Humayun is going to fight with Sher Khan. Here we see two battles, Chausa and Kannauj, also known as Battle of Bilgram. And in both the battles, Humayun was defeated and he had to run to save his life. Okay, so we know that in both the battles, be it the battle of Chausa, 1539 or 1540, the battle of Kannauj or Bilgram, he was defeated. He'll have to run. Sher Shah Suri is going to assume the power. Okay, he will be defeated. He ran away. Then he is going to take shelter in Amarkot. Then he'll go to Shah of Iran. He'll take help. He'll come back. In 1555, he'll defeat the Suri ruler and he will start reigning. Within a year, he is going to die. So there is not much here which we need to remember because these are largely political details. If we talk about the biography of Humayun, it was written during the time of Akbar. So Humayun Nama, a Persian text which was written by Gulbadan Bano Begum, but not during the period of Humayun, during the period of Akbar. Here when we see Gulbadan Bano Begum, one thing which should come to our mind is that women were having more freedom, more economic and cultural freedom during Mughal Empire. Which women? Royal women. When we are talking about Gulbadan Bano Begum, a sister of Humayun, she is the one who is well versed in language and literature. She is writing the biography of Humayun, named as Humayun Nama, and she is writing it in Persian, the language of the court. Okay, so we find the example of women who are powerful economically at this point of time and who are involved in cultural developments as well. Gulbadan Bano Begum being one of the examples. We come across the name of Noor Jahan, who was indirectly controlling the politics and during the time of Jahangir. She also issued coins in her own name. Think about her. She is not the ruler. She is issuing coins in her own name. So we find royal women being more powerful when we talk about Mughal Empire. We come across the name of Jahanara. Who was Jahanara? She was the daughter of Shah Jahan, and Aurangzeb used to take a lot of political advice from her too. So think about it. A woman giving advice to the character like Aurangzeb, who did not listen to people in general. And there are various letters that they have exchanged with each other. And in those letters, she questions Aurangzeb at a lot of times, and he did listen to her advice. We see Jahanara being one of the richest women in the world back then. So she is somebody who is also holding Jagir. We go to Chandni Chowk at one point or the other in our lives to visit Lal Killa or the other important places there, or at some time for shopping. It's a very good hub for that as well. So when you go to Chandni Chowk, the name itself is coming because of the cultural contribution of Jahanara. तो चांदनी चौक में क्या है, जब शाहजहानाबाद बन रहा था, when Shah Jahan is constructing the city of Shahjahanabad, that is Lal Killa and the surrounding areas, she is the one who gave patronage for the making of Chandni Chowk. चांदनी चौक क्यों कहते थे? वो संगमरमर का पूरा वहां पे ऐसे करके उसने चौक सा बनवाया था और यहाँ वाटर बॉडी थी. तो पूर्णिमा की रात को व्हेन फुल मून नाइट यूज्ड टू बी देयर, वहां से सीधा जो रोशनी पड़ती थी उससे द होल एरिया यूज्ड टू लाइट अप. दैट इज व्हाई द नेम चांदनी चौक. Okay, so now it doesn't exist, but we know that these are the kind of contributions that Mughal women were making. We were talking about Humayun, but since we were on the topic of Gulbadan Bano Begum, I gave you the examples in a chronological manner that we come across women who are important when it comes to literary contribution. There are women who have been politically influential. There are women who have been culturally important when it comes to architecture, as well. Okay, so all these women are part of royalty during Mughal Empire. There is a very interesting scholar, Munis Farooqi. He has written a piece on Mughal harem, and he is saying that when the son is being born, पहला जो बेटा है वही बनेगा अगला राजा. पता लग गया कि ये बनना है, तो उसके अपब्रिंगिंग के पीछे पूरा पॉलिटिक्स होता था कि who is going to brought him up. Why? Because the woman closest to him will have a lot of say in politics when that person is going to become the next ruler. तो बहुत बार ऐसा होता था कि जो बायोलॉजिकल मदर है वो उसको बड़ा नहीं करती थी. वो बच्चा उठा के किसको दे देंगे? जो ज्यादा पावरफुल होगी हरम में, कि वो औरत जो है उसको बड़ा करेगी. So this is also something which is going on simultaneously. Why am I giving you examples here from harem? Because this is the area where a lot of work has been done. Okay, that is the reason why we are giving examples from here and not from other areas. Okay, let us come back to this particular period. So we have understood during the time of Humayun, it was a period of political instability, and we don't see a large scale consolidation happening. He established the city of Din Panah. If you go to Purana Killa, old forts, there you will find that one area has been built by Humayun. तो वहीं पे वो शेरगढ़ वाली लाइब्रेरी है जहां से नीचे गिरते हुए उसकी मौत हो गई थी. तो दैट इज देयर, एंड अ पार्ट ऑफ इट हैज बीन बिल्ट बाय शेरशाह सूरी as well. Is this clear? So now let us come to the contributions of Sher Shah Suri, then we'll move to Akbar. Sher Shah वाले एरिया से तो क्वेश्चंस नहीं आए हैं. Nonetheless, we should know about the important contributions. So he is the one who is going to rule merely for 5 years, but he was able to introduce a lot of changes in various aspects. So we know about the political life. That he has fought with Humayun. 2 battles are there. He also fought with a very powerful Rajput ruler, Maldev, the Battle of Samil. Again, it becomes important when you are preparing for RPSC. वहाँ पूछते हैं ये चीज़ें. यूपीएससी में पॉलिटिकली नहीं पूछ रहे हैं तो इतने डिटेल में तो क्या ही जाएंगे. बट इट वॉज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट बैटल फॉर शेरशाह, बिकॉज ही इज सपोज टू हैव सेड कि एक मुट्ठी बाजरे के लिए मैं पूरे हिंदुस्तान की बादशाह हार जाता. Because Maldev was a very powerful Rajput ruler, and how Sher Shah was able to defeat him by conspiracy. कि और बहुत फिल्मी सी कहानी है. उसका जो कैंप है, they are about to fight the battle, और उसके जो इम्पोर्टेंट ऑफिशियल्स थे उन्हीं के कैंप में इसने 2 खत रखवा दिए. Those officials had not written that letter, but the letter is being addressed to Sher Shah, and it is saying कि आप आओ आक्रमण करने, हम लड़ेंगे आपकी तरफ से. And when Maldev saw those letters, he thought that my own officials are going to betray me. What is the point of fighting this battle? So a huge army had already returned when the battle happened. What we know historically, that Sher Shah was able to defeat Maldev. Why am I telling you this story even when it is not important? To make you understand the importance of Akbar's Rajput policy. We have been looking at this political instability in North India for a long period of time. We see that Rajputs were an important power to tackle with. There have been rulers who are going to Rajputana, who are defeating those rulers, who are trying to integrate that part in their sultanate, their empire. Again, after a point of time, Rajputs are rebelling and these rulers have to fight a battle with them again. And it is the story till the time of Sher Shah. When Akbar is going to come, Akbar understood this potential and he came up with a very innovative Rajput policy. That is the reason why I gave you the reference of Maldev here and the Battle of Samil. Is this clear? So politically we know this much. Now when we are talking about his economic policies, what kind of changes is he introducing? See, in administration he is going to follow the policy of Dag and Chehra to make his army more capable. That is one thing. When we are talking about the economic changes that he is introducing in agriculture, he is going to say that when we are collecting revenue, we need to, we should not only look at the production that is happening, but we should also look at the quality of land which the peasant has. Let's say if you have 1 acres of land and your production is, let's say, 100 kgs, I cannot judge her land on the basis of productivity on your land. Your land might be more fertile, her land might be less fertile, even if both of you have same amount of land. So he is saying that we should categorize the land on the basis of its quality, good, bad, and middle. And on that basis, we should levy the taxes on the peasants. So that is one change that he is introducing. When it comes to trade, what is the kind of change that he is introducing? To facilitate trade, he is building a lot of roads. The most talked about road is Grand Trunk Road. So that is one of the roads that he is building. What else he did? See, he said that if you are going to trade, let's say you are entering from Peshawar and you are selling your goods in Sonargaon. So earlier what will happen? इन सब जगहों पे टोल उनको देना पड़ेगा. Now, if a person is an outsider, the person might not know which one is the authentic post and which one is a fake one. So he said you have to pay taxes, chungi. Chungi is the term used for that. You have to pay chungi only at 2 places. The place where you are entering and the place where you are selling your goods. So he is making trading more convenient for the trader in the boundary of his empire. And this is how trade is going to grow. What he is doing, when you will not have to pay unnecessary taxes, the cost of your goods will be cheaper and people will be able to buy more, increasing trade even further. That is one change that he is introducing. So making of roads and collection of chungi only at 2 places. What else is he doing? He is saying that he built a lot of sarais along with the roads. In Delhi also, if you go to South Delhi particularly, you will find a lot of areas named after sarais. Jia Sarai, Neb Sarai, Katwaria Sarai, Bir Sarai. There are a lot of sarais. And if you go to those areas in the interiors, you will find medieval structures there. So they might be from this period, they might be from the late medieval period. So a lot of sarais are also being built so that traders can come and rest there. Okay, and this will also facilitate trade. So he is taking all these measures for the facilitation of trade. He, do you remember Wensang? He is saying that I have been looted twice. So he is making sure that law and order functions properly. Okay, and for that he is coming up with a very innovative idea. Without making investment, without doing extra investments, he ensured that law and order functions properly in the area. What he did, he said that if, let's say, this is an area which comes under an authority of a khud or a muqaddam, he said if in or around this area any kind of theft is happening, you will be held responsible for that. So these people used to have their own lathats. They are going to employ them. They'll make sure that law and order is functioning here. So without making extra investments, he was able to ensure the safety of traders in the region. Is this clear? So that is again another change that he is introducing in the context of economy. If we talk about cultural, society is going to remain the same, religion is going to remain the same. That is why we are not putting a focus there. Culturally, what becomes important during his time period? Padmavat by Malik Muhammad Jaisi will be written. Okay, so it will take historical inspiration from Alauddin's attack on Chittod, and the text is going to be composed. Apart from that, if we talk about architecture, so in architecture you can talk about his mausoleum at Sasaram. You can talk about old fort or Purana Killa as we call it in Delhi, built by this person. That can be cultural contribution. Is this much clear? Now his successors are not going to be very successful, and eventually Humayun will be able to take the empire back. Is this much clear? So let us move on to Mughals now. When we are coming to Humayun, Humayun was able to snatch the empire back, but he died within a year. So when he died, what is going to happen? That there will be a political chaos again. There are going to be various people who will start asserting their own independence. And in this context, we need to understand Akbar's policy. A very long time period. Again, you don't need to mug it up. You need to understand that it is a very long period of time for which Akbar is going to rule, and he had enough time to consolidate the empire administratively as well as economically. Is this clear? So when he is going to come, he is also going to fight a lot of battles. UPSC is not asking about battles, so you don't need to mug it up. Still, we are going to revise some of the important battles. So when he is going to come, what he is going to do? First, the very important battle will be the second battle of Panipat, which he is going to fight. So 1556, the second battle of Panipat will be fought between Hemachandra and Akbar. Akbar is going to be victorious and he'll become the Basha. Okay, that is one battle. After that, what he'll do? The very same process. He'll have to tackle the prominent dissenters. Okay, so one battle which is talked about is the Battle of Malwa, where he had sent Adham Khan to fight on his behalf. That is one battle. A battle with Rani Durgavati, a Gond Rani that we come across. A battle with Chand Bibi from Deccan. So these are some of the battles that we come across. A very important contention will come from Rajputana, and that too Mewar. So when we are talking about Chittor area, that will be the capital. From there, a very significant, you will see, challenge is going to come that is going to last for 3 generations of Mewar rulers. So here we see Rana Uday Singh. Rana, that means king, Raja. So Rana Uday Singh Akbar is going to fight with him, and it was a very bloody battle, and it has been considered a blot on in the career of Akbar. He killed a lot of innocent people in this particular battle which happened, and you will see this pattern being repeated in the careers of various rulers, that they fight such a bloody battle, one battle, but such a bloody battle that people are going to be afraid. This is one such battle in the career of Akbar, which has been very much criticized as well. So he will take control of that area, but Rana Uday Singh will keep fighting. Then Rana Pratap, the second generation, with whom the battle of Haldighati will be fought. Again, in the battle of Haldighati, Akbar emerged victorious, but Mewar did not accept the suzerainty of Akbar. Then in the third generation, when we will talk about Jahangir, I'll talk about that Rana Amar Singh. When we will talk about the third generation, then they accepted the suzerainty of Mughals. Okay, so when we are talking about the period of Akbar, Chittor did not submit to the authority of Akbar. These are some of the political details. Then in 1581, there was this rebellion of his Mirza Hakim, his half brother. So he had also rebelled against him, and it was very challenging for Akbar to put him down. Why? Because the group of ulemas started supporting Mirza Hakim, because Akbar is coming up with policies that ulemas are not going to be comfortable with. He is going to abolish Jizya, he is going to abolish Tirathkar, he is going to build a temple inside the palace. So ulema class is obviously not going to be happy with it. They will say कि चलो शादी कर ली, तुम मंदिर बना रहे हो, तुम बुत परस्ती कर रहे हो, you are anti-Islam. So these are the kind of accusations that will be made against Akbar by the ulema class, and they will say that we accept Mirza Hakim as our ruler. But Akbar was able to put the rebellion down eventually. So these are the political details from Akbar's life. Now we know that he was successful most of the times when we are talking about the political life. Okay. If we talk about Rajputs, Rajputs were powerful. Even when these sultans or bashas from Delhi were able to defeat them, they were not able to uproot them. That is one reality that was present. So what Akbar is going to do, Akbar is going to come up with a Rajput policy. And when we talk about Akbar's Rajput policy, it was a very innovative policy which provided North India a much sought after stability. What was the Rajput policy of Akbar? What are the tenets of it? Okay, so he is going to give Rajputs important administrative posts in the court. What else? Matrimonial alliances without conversion. And he is going to give the women of Rajput families the right to practice their own religions. Okay, so that is another part of it. What else? See, it is a mutually benefiting relation. What Akbar is going to do when we talk about Rajputs on one side and Mughals on the other side. What is happening here? Akbar said that I'm going to make matrimonial alliances. Not only Akbar, Mughals in general are going to make matrimonial alliances in Rajput families. Okay, so when matrimonial alliance is happening, see, ऐसा नहीं है कि यहीं पर सिर्फ interreligious marriages हो रही हैं. Earlier also we find a lot of examples. What is different here? That women were not forced to leave their religion and to convert to different religion, the religion of the husband. That was not what was happening here. So these women had the right to practice their own religion. That is a very important aspect of the matrimonial alliances that was being formed between Mughals and Rajputs. Second thing that is happening here, administrative posts are being given to the Rajputs. I'll give you one example. When we talk about Mansingh, Mansingh is a person who is belonging to Harkhabai's family and a very prominent Rajput figure in Mughal court. So there is this person, Mansingh, there is this person, Mirza Aziz Koka. Both of them are having more or less the same salaries. So when we are talking about Rajputs and Muslims who were present in Akbar's court, both of them were given similar administrative positions. So not discriminating them on the basis of their religion. That is another important part of the Rajput policy. What else is happening here? That Mughals said that you accept our suzerainty. They asked Rajputs to accept Mughal suzerainty and they said that we are going to give your area to you only as Watan Jagir. Jagir, a piece of land which will be given to them. Watan is a word that is used in the context of one's affiliation to a particular land. हम कहते हैं ना ये मेरा वतन है, तो यही से ये term आ रहा है. So Akbar said that I am going to return your area as a watan jagir to you only. What you have to do, you have to accept my suzerainty. What does it mean? That you are going to bow down before me? You are going to give me nazrana. Nazrana माने क्या है? Gifts. कि मेरे पास मिलने आए हैं तो कुछ अच्छा लेकर के आइए. And that is how you are accepting my suzerainty. What he said that we are not going to interfere in the internal matters of your Watan Jagir. That is a promise which is going to be made. So this is part of Akbar's Rajput policy which was mutually beneficial to both the parties. Now, they don't have to fight with each other. They can save their energies, they can save their resources and put it somewhere else. They are getting their autonomy if they accept suzerainty, and these people are getting loyal people in their administration because Rajputs are very much known for their loyalty. Okay, so it is a very important policy in this context because it provided North India stability in political terms. Is this clear? So that is something which is happening. We also see Mughals adapting a lot of Rajput cultural practices in the court. What kind of practices? Tuladan. So Tuladan is one such practice. Jharokha darshan. So these are traditions which were adapted by Mughals during the time of Akbar, and other rulers are also going to continue it. When Aurangzeb will come, he is going to abolish some of these policies. Okay, so adapting Rajput traditions into Mughal families, that is one thing. Adapting Mughal parts of Mughal architecture or elements of Rajput architecture in Mughal architecture. So that is another kind of assimilation that is happening in architectural context. Okay, so not only political alliance, but also cultural assimilation of some kind is happening with Akbar's Rajput policy. Is this clear? This policy is going to be adapted by the successors as well. When we talk about Akbar, the most talked about marriage is with the princess of Kakshavaha dynasty. क्या नाम है उसका? In popular memory, she is known as Jodhabai, but historically the name is Harkhabai. Okay, Jodhabai was the wife of Jahangir. Somehow it got mixed up, and in popular memory, she is known as Jodhabai. Okay, the historical name is Harkhabai, and when she married Akbar, one person, so she Harkhabai and the brother Bhagwan Das, inka beta hoga Man Singh, who will become a very prominent figure in Mughal court. Jahangir is also going to take this policy of Akbar forward. Okay, so we see the successors also going along with this similar policy. During the time of Aurangzeb, what changed? He is also, if you look at, there is this scholar Athar Ali. So he has given the whole data. How many Rajputs are employed in the court of Akbar and how many of them are employed in the court of Aurangzeb. Aurangzeb employed more Rajputs in his court. What changed here? That he started interfering in the succession disputes. And that is why there are rebellions which are going to happen. So that is something that we will discuss when we will reach Aurangzeb. I hope till here things are clear. Is there any doubt? So we can stop here, and the next class is going to be very important from prelims perspective when it comes to this topic. Why? Because a lot of questions from Akbar's time have been asked and they are pertaining to cultural aspects. So we will talk about Mughals, we will look at the previous year questions of Delhi Sultanate as well as of Mughals, and then we will move to Vijayanagar Empire. Okay, have a good day.